Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving into something absolutely wild. We are breaking down an undeniably dense, deeply fascinating, and honestly dizzying vision of tomorrow's battlefields. We're looking at Benoit Lapierre's research on metathetic kinetic cohesion theory. If you've ever found yourself wondering what warfare might actually look like between the years 2035 and 2045, well, strap in, because we are moving way beyond traditional stealth jets and cyber attacks. We're stepping right into an era of quantum computing, genetic editing, and massive autonomous robotic swarms. Okay, let's dive into this, because I want to completely shatter your current understanding of warfare. Right now, we generally think of war as a physical clash of forces, right? A highly destructive contest of wills. But what if the next major global conflict is mathematically resolved before a single physical shot is even fired? Noni Lapierre introduces us to a future driven almost entirely by quantum probability, where the absolute most decisive battlefield isn't land, sea, or air. It's a continuously mutating algorithmic reality.
Section 1. Welcome to the kinetic era.
So, warfare is fundamentally shifting away from localized physical annihilation, moving instead toward a total, all-domain synchronization of algorithmic realities. Now, let's playfully but seriously acknowledge the author's self-proclaimed high-verbosity intellectual prowess here. It's a dense quote, but let's translate this. What this actually means is that future artificial intelligence doesn't just observe or predict war, it creates it. By crunching millions of variables at quantum speed, the AI builds the tactical reality on the ground as it processes the data. It's not just a map of the territory anymore. The map literally becomes the territory.
Section 2. The new physics of war. To really wrap our heads around this, we need to understand the basic mechanics of this era, starting with two fundamental terms. First up is quantum war data. In this future, information isn't just passively collected by spies or satellites anymore. It is actively calculated into existence. We're talking about quantum processors evaluating millions of distinct variables, everything from weather patterns down to human genetics, in a state of superposition. This means commanders are quite literally looking at ontologically multiple futures at the exact same time. The data itself is a living probability landscape.
And this brilliantly illustrates our second definition, kinetic computing. Forget about silicon chips humming away on a server rack in an air-conditioned room. In the 2035 battlefield, computation happens through physical movement. Imagine a swarm of 10,000 drones reshaping their flight path in mid-air. That physical movement is actually a living, breathing computer algorithm solving tactical equations in real time. The weapon isn't guided by a computer anymore. The weapon is the computer. Section 3. Two geopolitical leviathans.
Now that we understand the physics of it all, let's look at the two irreconcilable, asymmetrical superpowers that will dominate this upcoming decade. The author projects a world basically run by two massive systems: the American Western Military Complex Corporations, or AWMCC, and the Chinese Automatic Robotic Realities, or ARR. And to be clear, both of these geopolitical structures are incredibly capable, but they approach this new quantum reality in entirely different ways. And importantly, both possess inherent structural flaws.
Now, what's really interesting about this is how completely opposed these two models are when aiming for tactical supremacy. Take their core philosophies. The Western AWMCC model relies heavily on market-driven individualism, whereas the Chinese ARR model is built entirely on state-harmonized collectivism. When it comes to key technology, the West prioritizes exquisite proprietary platforms. The East, they focus on omnipresent autonomous swarms. And their cohesion models are completely different too. The West uses a fractal, subscription-based model, while the East treats it as a monolithic public utility. Let's break these down just a bit further. Focusing on the American corporate defense model, we see a heavy reliance on the convergence of megacorporations. It's a highly financialized system, prioritizing modular energy weapons and exquisite proprietary tech. It also pioneers this concept of uplift as a subscription, basically privatized genetic enhancements. But the author notes a really critical vulnerability here. This monolithic corporate architecture is highly bureaucratic and incredibly brittle, making it super susceptible to subliminal gray zone proxy wars, where conventional deterrence is basically useless. On the flip side, we have the Chinese automated state model. This system operates on a Wu-Wei command philosophy. It's a Taoist cybernetic approach where distributed swarm logic robotics anticipate and dissolve threats automatically. It features absolute civil-military fusion, creating this hyper-resilient, infinitely scalable robotic ecology.
Here, neuro-optimization, which is the syncing of human brains to the system, is treated as a public utility linked directly to civic contribution scores. However, its systemic risk lies in stagnant hypercohesion. It could become so perfectly unified that it accidentally extinguishes the adaptive novelty needed to survive.
Section 4. Upgrading the human operator.
Okay, this brings us to the most shocking and visceral element of this entire explainer: the shift from silicon and steel to flesh, blood, and targeted genetic enhancement. As AI systems achieve and then completely eclipse baseline human cognitive processing, a terrifying reality sets in. The human brain is simply too slow to keep up with kinetic computing, so military institutions will inevitably realize that the biological operator is the most subversively volatile bottleneck on the battlefield, and just to survive, just to keep up, they must mandate morphological genetic enhancements. So how does that actually happen? Well, we can walk through this creeping biological escalation. It starts with real-time CRISPR-Cas13 gene edits, happening right in the theater of war, altering things like bone density or neural conduction speeds on the fly. Next, we see the integration of neuromorphic wetware chips embedded directly into human tissue. And finally, this all culminates in what the author calls neural optimalization, creating a fully integrated telepathic tactical synchronicity, a literal hive mind. Let's define neurooptimization clearly, because it isn't just about making soldiers smarter. It is the continuous, AI-guided calibration of the human nervous system. It expands working memory and accelerates synaptic plasticity, absolutely. But here's the wild part. It also actively mutes vestigial biological stress responses. Things like fear, fatigue, and even empathy are chemically and electronically suppressed. Why? So the human operator can endure the sheer, overwhelming psychological velocity of AI-orchestrated warfare. And just like their military hardware, the two superpowers approach this biological upgrade very differently. The AWMC privatizes these modifications, so you might see elective, premium-tier, subscription-based packages like Cogniflex, creating a massive vector for biological techno-feudalism, where human enhancements are just a market commodity. Conversely, the ARR mandates these edits. They provide state-curated neural harmony streams that enforce societal swarm assembly rhythms, linking a citizen's bodily form directly to the strategic intent of the state. Section 5. The future of cohesion. All of these technological and biological leaps are driving toward one ultimate goal: cohesion. In the 2045 battlefield, basic coordination is entirely obsolete. Cohesion means a morphogenic attunement where the boundaries between self, weapon, and data stream completely vanish. We are talking about a genetically edited soldier's amygdala and a drone swarm's flight path transposing data back and forth so seamlessly that they literally act together as a single distributed organism reacting to quantum probability. So the crucial point is, how does humanity actually survive this? When two perfectly optimized AI leviathans reach a state of absolute computational gridlock, what breaks the tie? Noni Lapierre argues it is subversive experientialism. The only way to outmaneuver an omnipotent, perfectly optimized algorithm is to deliberately inject hypercreativity, human irrationality, and chaotic morphological thinking. The unpredictable, messy synthesis of the human soul basically becomes the ultimate tactical weapon against the machine. By the end of this timeline, right around 2045, the central military question will have completely shifted. We will no longer be asking whether artificial intelligence will enter war. That's a given. The question will be whether war itself has become a distributed planetary metabolism, a continuous, all-encompassing system of sensing, moving, and deciding that operates way, way above and beyond human comprehension. Which leaves us with this truly haunting philosophical dilemma. When our quantum-computed, genetically uplifted war systems can see, move, and execute lethal decisions infinitely faster than the speed of human conscience, can our civilization actually remain human? It's a profound existential question that completely redefines the stakes of this kinetic era. Thanks so much for joining me on this deep dive. There is so much more to unpack here, and I really hope this explainer has left you provoked and hungry to learn more about the incredible and terrifying realities of our impending future.